I've seen a number of, and everywhere on social media these days, with sometimes some of them have banners everywhere, say, look, come and attend an entrepreneurship a seminar, whatever, on how to be an entrepreneur. You pay 1,000, you pay 5,000 naira for youth, for folks who have no jobs, who are out of jobs or unemployed and what have you, or get a second. Do you think all these are part of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and not even talking about being an MSME?
The challenge, if you ask me, is the reason why we have this proliferation of small agencies calling for such training is because SMEDAN has not done what it ought to be doing in Nigeria. If you go to the USA, you have the Small Business Agency. It's one agency that everybody in the US who wants to start a small, micro, large enterprise goes to. And they put you through the entire process. They give you research with which you can make informed decisions. But in Nigeria here, government agencies are not yet doing what they ought to do to guide either startups or people who are already in business to start or scale up their enterprises. So you have mushroom, I call them mushroom agencies, who call up several trainings, pay a token or pay some amount of money and come get the basics. But let's even go back to what we have at our tertiary institutions, the universities and the polytechnic. If you go to the National Board for Technology, I forgot what they call the NEPT, that takes care of polytechnics in Nigeria. The curriculum they developed for entrepreneurship studies across the polytechnics is dated back 2007. So whatever knowledge that is being passed to potential entrepreneurs across polytechnic in Nigeria is as developed in 2007. So that's very faulty. This is what these agencies see, companies see, and they begin to prey on innocent person to say, look, come learn entrepreneurship. If you go to NUC, Nigeria Universities Commission, there is no curriculum in place for teaching entrepreneurship in Nigerian universities. So what you have is University of Lagos develop what they find convenient for them to develop. ABU has something they are running on their own. Different universities have different things they are running. So this absence of commonality of approach is what these mushroom organizations look into and say, oh, because there's no government agency that is offering this service for budding entrepreneurs. Let's go in and milk them. And I'll tell you, I've attended a couple. I went in, sat into the trainings, and there's really no knowledge they are passing around. There's really no knowledge. It's just about the basics, how to start a business, how to manage a business. But the question now is how to first identify a need, make sure that need meets the minimum viable product criteria, and how to then invest rightly in that need that you've identified.
So when the government set up the Industrial Training Fund, for example, some years ago on SMEDAN, what was the key objective? Was it for companies that are already set up, or was it for startups who want to train their staffers? How do we get caught up in this right now, trying to really understand how we handle entrepreneurship as a twin or the same two sides of the same coin, or what you call entrepreneurship on one side and MSMEs on the other side?
So if you look at SMEDAN, the history of SMEDAN, sometimes in 2002, some guys from the United States came to Nigeria and approached the then president and said, look, for you to grow the Nigerian economy, you need to empower structured small businesses in Nigeria. And for you to be able to do that, you need to look at what the United States government is doing with the SBA in the United States. And they approached the government with hopes that the government will buy into the idea and then set up SMEDAN to be able to begin to structure MSMEs in Nigeria. Yeah, the government at that time bought into the idea, but one thing fundamental happened. When they got the National Assembly to pass the act establishing SMEDAN, what then happened next? Appointment became an issue. Who heads SMEDAN? Who become the DG of SMEDAN? And politics came in. So from the very first appointment of the DG for SMEDAN till date, we have not found the right person to manage SMEDAN. We haven't done that. So what you have are people who come in based on political appointment. They are recommended by somebody, and they become DG. And what they then end up doing is different from what SMEDAN was originally conceptualized to do. That is the problem at SMEDAN. So we did a review for SMEDAN between 2011 and 2015, looking at the activities they did within that period. And I will tell you, it's up on our website. You can find it there. 80% of what SMEDAN did between 2011 and 2015 is different from what it ought to be doing. Very different. If you go to ITF, we also reviewed ITF between 2011 and 2015. The bulk of what they did within this period, which is not different from what they did in other years outside of 2011 to 2015, is very different from what they ought to be doing. At ITF, for instance, I will tell you for a fact, what they teach persons in the form of industrial training is different from what they should be doing. You have curriculum that developed as way back as 1980s, early 90s, still being used to date. Now, we asked SMEDAN, for instance, to show us the manual with which they train burden MSMEs across states. So let's even see what knowledge you are transferring. Such manuals are not available, they are not there for anyone to see. So it goes beyond establishing agencies. It doesn't solve the problem. But when you establish agencies, you need to put in the right persons who have the right frame of mind to run the agencies. Government should be able to tell that, look, issues pertaining to economic development should not be politicized. Don't bring in somebody and make DG because he's recommended by one to the political top shot or the other. So,
okay,
except you are willing to go back to the drawing board.
Let's move this a little bit, Celeste, very, very quickly. Sorry, because of time, we've got a lot of grounds to cover. When we talk about key issues for entrepreneurs or MSMEs, for example, you've spoken about the agencies, but if I set up a medium and small enterprises, maybe I'm just doing catfish farming, for example, for this discussion. Do I need to be innovative? Is there any need for intellectualism involved in it? I just have some money, dig some ground, but get some borehole. Does that make me innovative? Does it need any intellectualism?
It does need, because if you want to start producing catfish for people to buy from you, you need to first define your market. Who is your market? Who do you want to produce for? And what is their need? How often do they need fish? In what state do they need this fish? It doesn't, like I said earlier, finance does not solve the entire problem entrepreneurship entrepreneurs face. Money is not at the top tree of it. You need to define your market. You need to define the constant changing needs of your market, because maybe you started supplying 5, 6 maybe restaurants or people who consume fish, and somebody else starts the business somewhere close to you and is supplying them also. I tell you, that competition will change the dynamics of your trade with people who buy from you. So you need constant dynamism. If you don't just start a business and continue to run it the way you ran it 6 months back, 2 months back. You need to be at the top of your market to know what your customers need. So it requires a whole lot of hard work. I call it hard work because people, except you have some charm that makes people come to buy from you regardless of what the quality of your product is, what the competition is offering them. You need to be at the top of your game. Else, whatever you invested in that business might go down in less than no time. And if you look at the transport industry in Nigeria, for instance, I can tell you 5, 6 companies that were leading the market in the last 2, 3 years, but where are they today? This is not different from small businesses. Some small business owners feel that once they have cash and they can identify a market, all they need to do is to produce what they think the market wants. But I tell you, the market is what defines what they want. You don't define what a market wants. So you need to be at the top of your game. You need to continue to innovate. And innovation comes from constantly interacting with your market. If you see a need that your market still has, besides what you're offering, you need to be able to fill that need. You need to know what your competition is doing, so you can also be at the top of your game as against what your competition is doing. So we need to get all of these basics for entrepreneurship in Nigeria to thrive.
I got that. And that's very interesting. But let's assume that I am an innovator, for example. I'm developing an app that will solve some problem. Maybe I want to set up a business. You have Uber right now, which is about car sharing, whatever it is, after Uber and whatever. Maybe I'm developing something that will help. But what about my intellectual property protection? What about this being a startup? Do I have any covering? As in this struggling economy, do I have anything? Do I have to be an MSME to be an entrepreneur as a software developer in a digital economy, for example?
So basically, in Nigeria, we have the copyright law, we have the trademark, we have the patent laws and the rest, and Ministry of Trade and Investment. So if you want to run a business that has to do with maybe your intellectual works and the rest, the first point for you is to begin to look for how you register and patent your rights and the rest. And we are in the last 18 months or thereabout, there's been a lot of innovations at the Trademark and Patent Office and Ministry of Trade and Investment. But most times, like I said also, people go into business not just studying what is the entire ecosystem for that business. So they go with the knowledge that they have, which most times is inadequate. So I know several guys who are running such businesses that they have dug up knowledge and they've used that knowledge to build applications and software. But they miss that link where you have to go get those rights protected by law for you. It's not even about just small business. We know a couple of persons who started businesses and they didn't even bother to get domain name, for instance. And before when they're not prepared to go get a domain name, somebody has bought up the entire domain name. So those are the things, the reason why I said there are some basic knowledge that entrepreneurs need to have in Nigeria. It's not just about how much you need. It's also about the entire body of knowledge you need to be able to run your business and run it in a manner that it will stay over a period of time.